Hi everyone, we're here for Choosing a Different Future with Siris Rivas. I'm Siris Rivas-Verdejo, and I have a wonderful guest today. I'm very, very excited to have her on the episode and on our show, where I'm going to introduce you to Georgia Watson. And I actually met Georgia. I have to ask her where we met because I feel like she's been like in my world and awareness for a while, and I can't really pinpoint exactly when it was when we met in person. But she works for Access Consciousness. She's also an Access Consciousness certified facilitator like me, and she does a lot of promotion and social media for them. And lately, I've been seeing a ton of her creations with the Lazy Double D ranch. So she's getting to play with horses there, and we'd love to talk to her about horses. That we had our previous guest, Sailor Shining Star, that was talking about what she does with horses. So I wonder what's a different take that Georgia will invite us to. And then she also has an online domination business. And that's actually one of the first things that I ever found out about related to Georgia, is that she was being interviewed by another radio show, and I heard it and I was like, I want to know more about her. Like, that's so cool. And the space that she was about not really making it significant, about it being really fun, and kind of this whole, like, I don't get why anyone else wouldn't do this. Like, it's like something that's possible for all of us. So I'll definitely have her talk about that. Her business and one of her classes that she offers is Are You Being Dominated and How Not to Be. So you can check that out as you're watching this episode. And we'll definitely give you the contact information for that at the end as well, and in the description right below. But wanted to say hi and thank you for being on the show, Georgia.
Thank you so much, Siris.
So, gosh, there's so many places we can go with this. One of the things that I'm super, super grateful for with you is the fact that you're really like all walls down about all these different aspects of your life that a lot of other people would really hide away and make really secret. And you're just like, here I am. This is what I'm choosing. Like, has that always been the case for you?
Not really. I mean, it's been a process, and I think a lot of us have experiences where we uncover little bits of ourselves, and sometimes when we do that, we say too much to somebody, and then we realize, okay, that isn't being received. And one of the things I had to realize along this journey of having so many different things that I'm interested in so many different areas is really being able to not cut myself off when I'm not being received. And Dr. Dane here is an amazing facilitator, and he talks about in the face of judgment, turn it up. And for me, what I did is turn up me. It's not like when someone's judging you, you have to be more in their face or more outrageous or ostentatious or make them feel uncomfortable. Because all of us have things about ourselves that will make someone out there uncomfortable.
True story. Yeah.
Totally. And then it's like, but if we don't turn that down in ourselves, what does that actually contribute to the world? Because there aren't a whole lot of people out there that are super comfortable with the weird or different or odd things about them. But what if we didn't have to cut them off in ourselves?
Yeah, and I love that. And also, what is it inviting to for those that are asking for it, that are looking for the people that are different and weird, that have those interests that maybe they don't see very many people expressing that they have an interest in, and then you're one of those people that's like, yeah, I'm interested in it. It might be just a small group of us, but hey, let's go and play. Let's go and have fun. You know, what can we create together? And I just definitely want to make sure that I don't forget to acknowledge you for that, because that's one of the things that I am looking for, that I was looking for more and more people that were like, hey, this is all of me. You can take it or leave it. And I'm doing some stuff that you may or may not want to choose to, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it's odd too, because I've noticed that when I've posted about things like that with the domination, it's like only certain people will see it. I've never had anybody message me like, wow, that was so inappropriate. Why are you putting this up? I'm sure that there are tons of people who've been my friends on Facebook for years who don't even know that about me. But it's like our points of view create our reality. Our reality doesn't create how we see the world. So it's so easy. Like, how many posts do you scroll over because they have no interest to you and they don't ping you, they don't light up, so you don't really notice them. And it's just funny that you notice, like, that's one of the first things that you noticed about me too, because it's like we all have just these things that we have little curiosities about, and I'm just so grateful that you're having me on to explore this.
Yeah. Thanks. So, gosh, I love that idea. And that's the thing too. It's like one of the things about making things hidden and secret is it almost kind of adds this like, oh, let's look here because someone's hiding something. So it draws in the people more when you're trying to hide it away. And I love the idea of that when you're just not really making it a big deal, it's like the people that are willing to receive it, find it, and the people that don't, and it goes from there. But if what the very things of what we're trying to hide and make secret often is what draws people in, it's that secret part. It's not even the topic itself or the project itself.
Yeah. It can almost be like there's some kind of a sign above your head, like this person's hiding something. And for a long time, I did have a hard time and a bit of a struggle with, well, how do I reconcile that when I've got parts of my life where I'm like a certified facilitator of access consciousness and then also doing these other businesses. But I knew that they weren't mutually exclusive. I knew that I look to create possibilities in whatever I'm working with, and it can go into all sorts of places. But to actually bring that out into the world was really challenging. Like, I remember the first post that I did about it, where it's kind of like coming out as the dominatrix. And I just sat there, like, after I posted this thing on Facebook, and I asked these crazy questions, like, okay, so what will it actually create in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years if I post this? And what will it create if I don't? And even when I was a little girl, like, I'm not sure why this was part of my world, but I always knew that I wanted to contribute to the world being a place that's more inclusive, a place that judges less than it does now. And I was bullied a whole lot too. And so I didn't really find that externally. So I was like, well, if I can be that, then that's a good start. But what ended up happening after I posted about it is I just got a flood of messages of people being so grateful. Some of them explore that on their own privately. Some of them have things that aren't like dominate. They're not exactly domination or anything in the sexual realm, but they had things about themselves that they were too embarrassed or shy to post. And just seeing me post that was something that, like, released something in their world, like, wow, I actually don't have to divide and separate myself. And, we're taught to have these public images and to come across as certain ways. And this is what it is to be professional. And when you have businesses and things, how much do you separate yourself into, this is me in this business, this is me in that business? What if the experiences and the you that you are in all those places can come together in each of the things that you contribute to? And you don't have to partition things off and make sure you're being too, like, appropriate enough.
Yeah, that totally resonates with me. And that's probably another thing that drew me to you, is that I was in that place with my business where I was still separating a little bit. I was worried about, here I am and I work with kids and families as a speech language pathologist. And then I am, for a lot of people, very outrageous, and I say all these different things and I'm willing to talk about it. And I was done hiding that. I was like, I'm willing to go and talk about them with my families if they want. It's usually not required, but like to not have the option to not really let myself be willing to do that. It was like, okay, this isn't going to work for me anymore. I just want to not have to keep track of who knows what in every area of my life and compartmentalize. It was like, this is me all over the place. So thank you for being the invitation to that. And I can totally see how that would really be really beautiful for other people, and really like inspiring to them to be like, okay, it's okay for me to do this. I don't have to separate all these things out. That's really great. I'd love to know, for anyone that does not know anything about like domination and things like that, how would you describe it, and in the general, and then how you do it, things specifically for you? Because I know there's a lot of different ways that can show up.
Oh, definitely. It can be pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Domination is really kind of one of those labels. It's like, it's a description of something, but then when like you asked the question to me, it's like, it can be any number of things. And what I guess my first interest in domination came from being out of a relationship where I didn't feel like I had any say, any control, and I didn't like it, but I was there for about 5 years. So it's like from age 19 to 24, I really delved into not in the sexual aspect of being submissive, but the kind of energies of like, I'm gonna do my best to make this relationship work. And the way that I knew how to do that at the time was to change and modify myself to make sure that I wasn't upsetting him, that I wasn't, it's like I wasn't really as much part of the relationship.
Like,
It's
well,
like,
you weren't including you in there.
yeah, I wasn't in the computation. And after like really thoroughly exploring that for 5 years and realizing that that didn't actually get me anywhere, so the relationship ended, and then it's like everything opened up, because I first started hearing about access consciousness at that time. So I started using some of the tools and asking questions that expanded what I thought was possible before. And it was just kind of one of those things where I don't even remember how I heard about it necessarily, but I started creating my own version of being a goddess, being dominant. And I didn't do research about how other people did it. So the number one thing that I hear from people who contact me, and sometimes people like contact me, they're like, well, I've been, looking at your content for like years and years and years, and I only finally got up the courage. And usually the first thing they say to me is, you are so different than anybody else out there. And that's one of the things I really encourage people to create with their own businesses, no matter what area it's in. It's like, stop looking to other people to find out what's right for you. And I guess that doesn't just apply to businesses, but what if you're like the anomaly? Like, unicorns are really popular right now. And it's like, to me, what that energy is that has made that such a trend, it's like each of us have such a unique and individual way of seeing the world, individual gifts, skills, curiosities, aptitudes, that kind of thing. And I'm just so grateful that I didn't do research into how other people did that business, because then I got to create it as how it would work for me.
Yeah, it was like a blank slate, a blank canvas for you to create upon. And that's, it's funny that you say that, because that's exactly what I was about to do. And then I was like, as soon as I was about to start comparing myself to somebody else, it's always been really heavy and crunchy for me to do that. And immediately it felt really contractive. So I've never seen somebody run their business and create business and do business the way I do. And it's way more fun for me because of that. It's like, ooh, like, oh, now what? And now what? And now what? And yet at the same time, what you're saying, I also don't get the sense that you're not willing to receive inspiration and ideas from other people. It's just that it's not like you're going to use that as like a guiding force. Like, oh, they're doing it this way, so I should do it this way. It's like, what about that is going to work for me? What about that's not going to work for me? And while still being with what is true for you the whole time, and what's actually going to expand your business in your life. Like, that's so cool. So with the goddess, I love that you also talk about as you creating you as a goddess. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I can. And also with what you were saying about how I create my business, I don't look to other people for an answer. So when I'm looking into something, I usually things just kind of, I happen upon information. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, okay, so I can play with that. Like you're saying, just using inspiration. But I think one of the places where that came from is I have an art background. Like my major in college was studio art, and then my minor was art history. And I realized that nothing is totally, like, nothing's created in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. So like, we're all inspired and influenced by everything that we see, everything that we've experienced. So yeah, it's like, it is a process of receiving and taking that information and then creating something that's your own way, but without having to make it seem like I'm doing my own thing. No one else does. Yeah. Like, it's actually just a creation that's inclusive of everything that I've ever seen or experienced. And
I definitely want to hear more about the art as well, because I do remember you saying that when we were in the Right Voice for You class in Houston, that with Andrew Gardella and Chris Hughes, it was a phenomenal class, that you had that background in art. But I definitely don't want to forget to talk about the goddess part as well. So could you speak to how that, like, if it does even apply, how you creating you as a goddess, like, involves receiving from other people as well as you gifting to them?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like we're taught that give and take is how relationships are created. And I was never, so after the 5 years of really like giving of myself, like I realized like that's actually such a fallacy. Like you actually can't create anything greater when you're giving you up. So I was like, okay, so I know like being totally selfish, like being the flip side of doesn't create anything greater either, because then it puts the other person in that position of now I have to give until there's nothing left in me.
Mm-hmm.
So then I started looking at contribution, which is the simultaneity of gifting and receiving. And it's different than give and take. Give and take is like, I give you this, now I have the permission and the now I deserve to take whatever I want. So there's all this weird stuff and energy around it. And contribution is like, it's actually a gift to me when I'm being received. And then it's actually a gift when, I mean, have you ever given somebody a hug and it just melts? And it's like, there's no reason to give the hug. There's no result. It's just, there's some kind of exchange happening. And that's how earth works. That's how nature is. It's like flowers, it's kind of like the art thing. It's like nothing lives in a vacuum. Everything is included. And that's one of the things I love about access consciousness is it's their definition, if it is a definition of consciousness, is that everything is included and nothing is judged.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love about it too. It was one of the first like systems and tools and places and people, a community really, that was one of the big targets for them, was for there to be less judgment in the world, like you were saying earlier. And given all of the judgment I was always aware of my entire life, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was like, oh, that's what I'd like more of in the world. Yes. Oh gosh. So, with your artwork too, are you still making artwork? Is it available for purchase? Like, I don't think I've ever seen any of your artwork, and I'm excited to now. Like, I want to see some of that.
Yeah, I don't really have any of it for sale that I know of. I have a huge stockpile of it at my mom's house in Oregon. But you did actually see one of my paintings at the Right Voice for You. We were looking at that painting of Brett, the portrait.
That's right. That was yours.
So I like doing portraiture, and one of the things that's really fun for me is capturing the energy of a person and letting that person be seen in a different way, like through a different eyes. And I think that's what's one of the huge gifts of art, is you really get to look through the world from a different vantage point. And I learn something about the world every time I see a piece of art. And also going back to the goddess part, like it was funny because we were talking about art and the goddess thing, and we haven't really like talked about it yet. But one of the things that I remember in one of my first art history classes is looking at the archetype of the Venus and the archetype of the Madonna or the Virgin.
Mm-hmm.
And they both had these such distinctive characters, and they've gone through so many different times. Like, I think one of the first Venuses that we know of is the Venus of Willendorf, which is carved out of stone. It was made way a long time ago. And she's this figure that has exaggerated sexual parts. Like, everything's just out there. She's got big boobies and her vulva's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
She's round, and she's just this symbol of like fertility, but also it's not just about like fertility. I think it's actually, she's this inspiring kind of sexually empowered being. At least that's how I see it. And that's the other thing about art. You can put whatever you want on it.
That's true. I was raised by artists, so yeah, it's that. my dad would refuse to tell you what his artwork meant. He's like, what do you see in it? Like, and I love that. It's like, what is it? What's showing up for you when you see this? That's really cool. And so that was the oldest one that they found,
Yeah,
that they know of so far.
yeah, that's one of the earliest ones. And then, you know, you see that going through like Botticelli's Venus, where she has this long, beautiful hair. She's standing in a shell out in the ocean. And this
One of the most popular ones that people often picture when they think of Venus. Yeah.
definitely, yeah. And to me, I see that being as, and that archetype as the muse. It's someone who's willing to inspire others. I'd say she knows she's being watched, she knows she's being seen, and she doesn't turn herself down for that. Nothing gets taken from her by inspiring others and being sexually empowered and being out there in a way that isn't normally allowed. Like the way that Lady Godiva, she was resisting and upset by what her husband was doing in the small town where they were living. They were collecting so many taxes, and she thought that was just totally unjust. So she gets up on a horse naked, and in that time, I mean, even now you can't go out in public and ride a horse naked. It's still illegal, but this was a long time ago. So she gets out there and she's like protesting with everything of her included.
Mm-hmm.
So I love these archetypes in this figure of Venus. And then there's also the energies of the Madonna and the Virgin. It's like someone who's never been touched. She's totally pure. Everything that happens in her life is happening for the first time. And I mean, everything's so, this is the way I say it, like everything is just so exciting and it's always new. And one of the things that I started looking at with art is, what if these aren't distinctive characters, like they're separate and they can't be there at the same time? But like, I mean, are there situations in your life where you feel like you're more like, oh, this is new. Oh, I'm scared. Don't do that, but keep going. Or I don't know, you know, that's like but then you can switch at a moment's notice.
It sounds very titillating.
Yeah, it is. And then it's like you can switch at a moment's notice and be this totally sexually empowered creature that has every pleasure at her fingertips. And this is a long and roundabout way of talking about what being a goddess is. But to me, a lot of people talk about domination as being this forceful, mean, bratty, spoiled, vindictive character, but somehow that's alluring. And there can be that too, but what if that's just one of the aspects or characters that we can play? And if we don't limit ourselves to being one specific thing, then we have everything available. And that's part of what I've played with domination, is just being willing to switch at a moment's notice and find what's fun for me. And one of the great things about being a goddess and a dominatrix is you're never wrong. So you get to with that, and you don't have to stop and second guess yourself and like, oh my God, was that too much?
That's awesome. That's awesome. And then get paid for that. That is so cool. That is so cool. And since it's online, so you can take that anywhere. And I know you travel a lot, work with Access Consciousness, with your facilitation of classes. And so this is yet another business, another revenue stream for you that you can take wherever you go. Like, what has travel been a part of your life, most of your life? How does that influence how you do business?
Oh, that's such a cool question. I've never really thought about that. My first real trip that I remember taking when I was a kid, I was probably about 10 or 11 years old. I got to go to Kenya and Tanzania. And I remember I created a business during that trip. So I think it probably relates a lot more than I realized. I don't know.
For all of the youngsters watching this, like, how cool is that? Yeah, you're never too young to have a business.
Definitely. And I had lots of other businesses before that too. They just weren't traveling ones necessarily. Like I was making all sorts of art stuff, selling things that way. And it wasn't for the money. And that's one of the things that I think is so helpful to realize. Like, we don't really necessarily do business for money as much as we think we do. And I think one of the places that we see that is if you have multiple things going on in your life, you won't necessarily do the one that's always the most lucrative. You want to do what you want to do. And if it were just about money, then you'd be doing something that was really, really just about the money. And so that's one of the things that's helped me have more fun in business, and also choose many businesses in my life that are just really generative and fun, and also make me money too.
Yeah, yeah. Like it's not excluding the money, but it might be there's not the motivation is money, and that's not wrong if you're choosing something with business that is not like the primary reason for you to do it is money.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I don't know where I heard about this as a kid. It's one of those things where the information just happened, like I happened upon it and I was like, ooh, that. So someone said people love pens there. I was like, pens, like writing pens? And they're like, yeah, there aren't really a lot of pens there. So if you bring them, you can like get stuff. I was like, all right, I like this idea. So
that's so interesting.
I went to a store and just got a bunch of ballpoint pens. And sure enough, as we're driving into like from Nairobi, from the airport, and there are just swarms of kids and all sorts of different people that some were begging, some had like goods for sale. So I had these pens, and through the window of the van that we were in, I made deals like 2 pens for this, 1 for a lot of that. So I got all sorts of jewelry and handmade items.
That's so cool.
And these kids were so happy, and I was so happy. And I think that's one of the things when you take all the significance and all of the weird judgments around capitalism out of it, it's like, what do you have to offer, whether it's a product or a good, like, or services or just like energies? What is it that you have that other people are actually looking for? And oftentimes it is the thing that you discount the most, that you think has totally no value, like a pen, for example. I mean, it's like you think, why would anybody want that? But if you realize that the things that you don't necessarily think have a monetary value or even any intrinsic value, that they're just so commonplace for you, it's like if they have a value to other people, get rid of your points of view that actually isn't a value, and see, wow, this does to somebody else, and be willing to receive for that. Because I could have, as a kid, been like, oh my God, that's so mean. I took their handmade items. I didn't have to put in any work. I only, all of that kind of stuff. It's like, would that have brought, like, if I would have done that as a kid and done the right thing and make sure that I wasn't taking from anybody, would that have brought the joy that it did? It's like everyone was smiling, everyone was happy. So I think that's one of the places that people got a bit astray with business is not really seeing the gift of what they're being by offering this thing that they have available.
And it's like the joy that it'll create, and also the gratitude. Like I get more and more that the more people are grateful for you, the more money shows up. Like there's something with that it's like, and it could just be not this product, like the pens. It could just be you being in the world in a certain way, you being the inspiration and invitation to something else, like we talked about earlier, and people being like, thank you so much for saying that and being that and doing that. Wow. And a lot of times it can be this direct, like, here, money, or this other exchange of beautiful jewelry and things like that, or it'll show up somewhere else. And you're like, and somehow you're like, wow, my awareness tells me that, like, me doing this and being willing to be out of hiding and not compartmentalizing is creating something else, and it's generating money for me somehow. Like, cool. And then I also love when you have business where it's actually directly paying for you, and you have a bunch of other ones that I haven't even mentioned yet that are revenue streams for you. So you're just like a business entrepreneur of magnitude. And so I get that we could probably talk a lot more about that as well. So with the travel, so that kind of started this piece of having travel and business be connected for you. How awesome is that? And now what does it look like? So how has it evolved over the course of your life, that relationship between business and travel?
Well, that's also a good question. Let's see. So I do travel quite a bit to different classes, and I go to different countries. And then sometimes it's a kind of direct link where I'll take photos or do videos at certain places. And just, I guess it's like, no matter where you are, whether you're traveling in your town that you live in, or you're traveling in places that you've never been, or different places around the world. It's like, if we could have that sense of adventure where we're always kind of looking out for what's possible, I think that's kind of more the key. And sometimes there is a bit of that hometown mentality of like, oh, I'm home now. And what if we could have this, it's like more of an exploratory, back to like kind of like the Virgin
I was thinking, yeah. That's the new? Oh, what now? Even in your own home. Like, I love when I used to live in Chicago, I lived as a tourist there. So I was always like, what new restaurant can I try? What's a tour I could go on? What other people can we meet? Like, what other events could I go to? And it was this continuous thing. Sometimes people who would live there for their whole lives would never try out some of those things because they didn't have that sense of exploration and play with wherever they were. And that's totally possible.
Definitely. And especially now with social media, it's like when I look on my Facebook page, if I were to scroll through my friends, almost none of them are here in Houston where I live. So it's really fascinating that now like travel is taking place in a different way too. It's like the people that we can reach, like, who knows, like if you post something that's going on in your life and you make a little video about something that's changing for you, or some awareness that you got, or something that just kind of pings you or pops to talk about, it's like there could be people that you never even realize, and you might never even get the feedback from that contributed to their world. But it's like, now that we have that possibility with YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, it's like we can use those things to show a particular image so people see us a certain way, or we can actually use them to be us all over the world at all, like all the time. Yeah. So
that's a really beautiful way of putting it, Georgia. Wow, that's getting me a little teary-eyed. It's like being you all over the world. Like, wow. Oh, goosebumps.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So that's actually a really lovely place for us to pause. I'm getting. I know we can talk a lot more. But man, that's a beautiful note. And it's funny that just this last little tidbit, when you're saying about that, sometimes you don't get the feedback. If you start counting the likes and counting the hearts and things like that, you might not actually get how much of an impact you're being in the world. I just got a message from someone this week on one of my YouTube videos saying, hey, do you remember me? I was your Uber driver 2 or 3 years ago, and I've been watching your videos this whole time, and I love them, and I hope you're doing well. And I was like, oh my God, I had never seen his likes at all before, but he'd been watching them. And you just never know. And it was creating a positive impact in his life and his world. And so what if we could just be all of us all over the world, like you're inviting us to, and also acknowledge where that's already being an inspiration and an invitation to other people.
Yeah.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Georgia, for being on the episode and being on this show. Please feel free to come back anytime. I know that there's definitely more we can talk about. And so you can actually find Georgia. There's a couple ways you can find Georgia. So she has brettandgeorgia.com, BRET for Brett, and Georgia.com, areyoubeingominated.com, and you can find out more about her class, the Are You Being Dominated and How Not to Be class that she has. Phenomenal. And then she's also on Facebook and all of those other social media platforms she was just talking about. So if you like this episode and you love what Georgia's talking about, go ahead and ask her questions below, subscribe to our channel, and you can go to choosingadifferentfuture.com to submit some other ideas for future guests. So hopefully we'll see you again soon, Georgia, wherever you are in the world, somewhere else, be it in Houston otherwise. Thank you everyone else for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.